The Rings of Power Season 2 is fully leaning into enemies to lovers, and I'm not mad about it. This is from Collider. I have seen some clips of actual scenes, and the dialogue has not impressed me. It's kind of been a little cringe. And they're also kind of leaning into this enemies to lovers thing with Galadriel and Sauron, that the marketing has just been heavy with that, with shipping these two characters. It's so cringe. It just makes me nauseous, just even entertaining that idea. I don't know why that's a thing. Same thing with Star Wars The Acolyte. It's the same energy. The shippers of Osha and Khmer, the Sith, the enemies to lovers thing. Who is this for? I get the kind of concept, but why is it like being inserted so much in places and IPs where it doesn't belong? I feel like this genre or whatever, that kind of story just is for other things. But they're trying to force it in to these stories and IPs where it just doesn't work. And especially when you consider Galadriel and Sauron, where it's just, he's the epitome of evil and you want them to have a relationship. I mean, it just takes problematic and toxic relationships to a whole new level. But I saw this, and this is what I was saying, like every shot of Galadriel in Rings of Power, she just looks human to me. Even this shot, she just looks ordinary. Rings of Power Season 1 started this thing of the Galadriel shippers. I just feel like an instant feeling of nausea when I even think about it. But yeah, that was a huge thing. And I feel like The Acolyte was just part of that. Like, are they in the same writer's room? Are they hanging out? I feel like it's the same thing of like The Acolyte in its story conception as the Rings of Power is. I mean, there's some connection with Star Wars because J.J. Abrams put in a good word for J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay to get this job. So I don't know if there's this connection. I'm just getting these such similar vibes and storytelling of this enemies to lovers. Also, this blending of this moral spectrum, this morally gray thing that they're trying to push into these IPs that are very well established as being good versus evil. It's pretty cut and dry in that regard. Shouldn't people be embarrassed when it comes to shipping certain characters? Like in an IP like Star Wars, why are we trying to promote the most unhealthy of relationships? This goes beyond toxicity or problematic. When you want your hero, who's Osha in the Acolyte's case, to get with a murderer who murdered Osha's friends in front of her. And she seemed to have like this friendship with Yord, like they knew each other when they were kids. And she also seemed to be having a budding relationship with Jeki. And he murdered all the Jedi. Why would you want your protagonist then to then enter a relationship with the Sith? And this is like a family-friendly IP in Star Wars. And again, with The Lord of the Rings, which is very traditionally, there's nothing morally ambiguous about it. It is good versus evil, the epitome of evil. He's like practically Satan, Sauron here. So why would you want your heroine to be in a romantic relationship or even to hint at it is disgusting and so morally bankrupt. I feel like there's a place for stories like that. It's just, why do you want to inject it in IPs where they do not belong? I don't get the push to do that. And it really just seems like there really aren't fans of the IP that are pushing this. And I don't know why, but the media loves it. Or it's just ones that like those types of stories are in these media platforms and pushing this. They take a line, like with Star Wars, they took the line of being seduced by the dark side, literally, when it came to Osha's case. They literally wanted her to be seduced by the Sith. That's not what that means. That's not what seduce means in this context. That's how it begins when he's like bathing in the pool naked. It's definitely implied nudity, and she's definitely checking him out. You definitely see her looking. And what is that? So little girls are supposed to that's what they should aspire to? It takes the bad boy trope to a whole new unsavory level. This isn't just a bad boy, it's misunderstood, or whatever. This is straight up evil. In Star Wars, in Osha's case, it's a murderer. A cold-blooded killer who murdered them because they didn't let him be who he wanted to be. There was absolutely no justification for his actions. No moral justification. They did that very poorly. But yeah, are we supposed to also root for a heroine who's okay with that? You may have murdered my friends, but you're hot, so that's why no one liked that show. It could be well written and executed in other things, but just not this. And I think it's even more egregious when it comes to The Lord of the Rings. Probably some of the best romance stories in all of fantasy are from Tolkien's works. And it's so corrupted now with this. It's such a desecration and bastardization of the spirit of his works by trying to push this. So I think there's a line, something about Galadriel touching the darkness, having touched darkness. That's what they use as justification for shipping Galadriel with Sauron, pretty much the lieutenant of Satan. It really bothers me when I see this online. I'm just scrolling through and I come across this. Yeah, I'm mad about it. The writer of this article is not mad about it. I am. It just makes me. Okay, so the writer of this article was talking about mostly the promotional campaign that's been going on. I don't think normies or general audiences are paying this close attention in like interviews and stuff, but those weird Entertainment Weekly covers, the live poster covers that they shoot. She's talking about the marketing campaign that's kind of leaning into their possible budding romance. And the writer, Collider's not mad about it. They're also fanning the flames of it because they're also asking about Galadriel. They're also asking about this romantic connection. They did put it in the show pretty heavily. And at the very end, Celeborn, yeah, she mentions Celeborn at the very end. And that one shot of them as Sauron and Galadriel, like the king and queen or whatever. People like ranting and raving about that shot. Yeah. Oh god. Okay. She says their mutual vulnerability establishes a charged, intimate, and accidental baseline, the tendrils of which create an even more compelling pairing. Oh, I'm getting nauseous just reading this. I'm sorry. How can you entertain this as an idea? This article is, yeah, vomit-inducing. So coming off the back of the Acolyte and that Oshimir shipping online, and then to like be greeted by this, it's like, could you stop, please? Yeah, gagging noises. We'll see how this plays out. I'm not confident. I have nothing to rest any hope or confidence in. Some do. They think that because it looks darker and grimmer, more battles, more monsters, more everything, that it may course correct. But you've established a foundation that has so bastardized Tolkien's works already. I don't think there's a way to correct it. And I don't think the showrunners are competent enough to attempt it. We're going to have great visuals, I'm sure. We're going to have these great stills, but we're also going to have characters talking to each other. And from what I've seen in actual scenes of dialogue, oh boy, I'm not hopeful.